welcome to another episode of Hospitality Insider on Koni TV. I'm Connie Kim. Today's featured guest is Jeff Loether, who is President, Electro-Design Media. Hi, Jeff.
Hi,
welcome
how are you?
to Hospitality Insider.
Thank you very much.
Would you please share with the audiences exactly what your company does?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Electro-Media Design is a firm that we started 23 years ago, and it builds on the technology and creates experiences for guests in lodging hospitality venues that have to do with audio-visual and acoustics and lighting and low voltage, all of the technologies.
Oh, yes.
And as part of the interior design, as part of the architecture, as part of the mechanical designs.
Okay.
Yes.
So who are your main customers?
Well, we get involved along the whole spectrum. So on one side, we work with the brands, and we have written the master design standards for many of the five-star full-service brands in the world. Those standards are used to be given to developers who then are building the facilities for those brands.
Oh, okay.
So sometimes the developers will reach out to us and ask us to do the designs with their architects and interior designers. And then we work with the contractors to make sure that the equipment is purchased properly and installed properly. And then we work back with the brands to make sure that the facilities are operated and the systems are used the way they're supposed to be used and maintained.
Yes. So you're an expert to making all that environmental sound that comes out just perfect. Then who are the designing that? Is it architects or the designers?
Well, in truth, we have to be, as acoustical engineers, we have to be involved with everybody. The structural part, if we want to make sure that there's no noise and vibration coming from some of the mechanical equipment, for instance. The HVAC systems to make sure the background noise is not too great.
Right.
We work with interior designers so that the room acoustics are proper, so we don't have too much reverberation or any echoes that come off of hard walls.
Oh.
So we work with everybody in the design team to make sure that all the systems are. Then we design with the electrical engineers the speakers and the microphones and the projectors and the displays and the digital signage and the Wi-Fi and all of those technologies that get integrated into the building.
Oh, I see. Okay. So what made you start in this company?
Oh my goodness. Well, I guess I started in 1980 when I had an opportunity to work with Marriott Hotels.
Oh, okay.
So I was in Marriott's architecture and engineering group, and it looked like nobody was paying much attention to the audiovisual side of things, so in 1980 that became my job.
Yeah.
And for 10 years, through the whole development of all the master standards for Marriott, and 170 hotels that I opened in 10 years.
Wow.
Them all over the world.
Yes.
From Hungary to Hong Kong.
Yes.
Then started Electro-Media Design right after that to continue to provide those services to a broader spectrum of the industry.
Yes.
It's mostly architects that we've worked with that will reach out and let us know that they need us on their design teams.
Yes.
Sometimes there's interior designers who realize that it's better to get us involved earlier in the project to prevent the problems than to have us come back and have to try to fix them.
Yes, it's always prevention is the better thing than fixing it later. So where does your passion come from with doing all this?
The passion comes from the aha moments when you realize that there's a difference, that something's changed. In psychoacoustics, there's a phenomenon that is when our senses give us different messages. So for instance, when you walk into a ballroom that looks like a palace ballroom, it is just absolutely gorgeous, and then you hear somebody drop a book or people start to talk, and the cacophony, the sound signature of that room is so different from what your eyes. It sounds like a garage, but it looks like a palace. And there's part of your mind that goes, huh? What's going on here? And that part creates stress.
Yes.
And so I guess my whole life passion right now is finding out how can we make the guest experience as stress-free and as intuitive and congruent as possible. How do we make the acoustic environment and the sound systems and the kind of music that we play in that? When you go to an Italian restaurant, do you expect to hear hip-hop? No.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, and how often have we been in restaurants when we can't even have a conversation
That's
with the
right,
people
so
sitting across the
noisy.
table from
That's
us?
right,
You know,
that's
so
right.
That's, I guess, my mission is education. Right now I do a lot of teaching.
I see.
We call this practice architechnology. And I
see.
coined the term 15 some years ago.
Yes.
When I was seeing how our eyes and our ears work. We are analog.
Right.
And our eyes are analog and our ears are analog. And the room itself is analog. With this shift from analog to digital technology and all the audio equipment and all the video equipment, everybody's going, oh, there's this convergence, this
Yes.
AV, IT convergence. So I started looking at that. Well, if our eyes are analog, but the equipment is digital,
Yes.
what happens between that interface?
Yes.
And I realized how important the room is, how important lighting and acoustics and not having cables all over the floor and not having things set up in the middle of the room. So this architechnology practice is looking at and designing from the human perception perspective, area by area, space by space, from the curb all the way through to the guest room. What is that guest going to be immersed in? We know what they're going to see, but we don't know how it's going to sound. It's going to happen either accidentally or on purpose, and hopefully we'll help it have it work well on purpose. You know.
So I understand that any sound that related to your brain waves that really makes the difference how a person can feel.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
So hold that thought. So when we come back, we're going to learn a little more about how this sound really affects the mood of the people and how he can help us to make it feel much calm and beautiful. So don't go away.
This is Christine Shanahan with HVS Design, and you're watching
You're watching Koni TV.
Koni TV,
Koni TV.
Koni TV.tv.
the first internet TV station for the hospitality industry.
Welcome back to Hospitality Insider with Jeff Loether. Thank you so much for sharing this wonderful story about sound. Tell us that how the brain waves react to the different type of a sound and how you make that adjust to make a person feel calm and happy.
Thank you for the opportunity. In thinking this through, it might be helpful to think all the way back to the caveman days and the cavewoman days. When we were living as primitives, we had to survive. So sound actually is a greater indicator of survival. We had to have our hearing fine-tuned. That's why we don't have earlids.
Right.
We have eyelids. We can close our eyes.
Yes, that's
and we can
right.
look at something. But we can't listen at something. Our ears are listening all night long, listening for that twig to snap in case the lion is coming. So sound is a critical
Yes.
part of our life in a psychological perspective. The higher the level of sound, the more difficult it is for us to hear that twig snapping. So in the very primitive part of our brain,
You're right.
higher levels of sound create more stress.
That's right.
And we know that that kind of stress is not the good kind of stress.
Nobody wants it. Yes.
What we try to do is to create a acoustically friendly environment. It's easy to add energy to a space if we start with a quality, quiet room. But if the room is already noisy, we could play any kind of soothing soundtrack, but you won't hear the soundtrack if the room's already noisy.
Right.
So sound is a very, very important part of our life.
That's absolutely right. So if you say that, I mean, I know previously that some guest rooms or some public areas, we actually upholster the whole wall, so in order to prevent the sound. So what is the new technology, how you process that into, you go into the environment that is really not conducive in sound? That, do you have a new technology that takes care of that type of situation?
Well, guest room sound is a particular interesting topic.
Yes.
One of the aspects of it is that our ear, like our eye, has a little muscle inside. It's called a stapedius muscle. And the purpose of that muscle is to tighten up when the sound levels go high so that we don't have such sensitivity. When we're in a guest room and it's too quiet, that muscle relaxes so much that we can hear a lot more of the sounds in the corridor and in the room next door and outside. So we're actually working with some clients who have their guest rooms are too quiet. So we want to have a certain background level of noise brought up so that the guest has, it's called masking noise. It creates a little bit of masking so that you don't hear some of those outside noise. It reduces our sensitivity somewhat. Another thing that's interesting about guest room acoustics is that all of those master standards that I was originally involved with back in the 80s, and so many hotel brands are looking at each other's standards and pretty much leveling to make the same kind of quality. Well, the televisions back then were CRT TVs with a little 2-inch $2 speaker, and the sound system in the room was a little clock radio, again with a $2 2-inch speaker. Well, nowadays you've got sound bars and stereo and surround sound, and sometimes they're even putting subwoofers in, but they've got the same walls between these. We have one hotel in LA that I was commenting on the fact that they had these new radios, high-performing radios on the nightstands, and you could plug your iPod into it and it sounded really, really good. He said that was the worst day. Our complaints went off the charts the morning after we put those things in. He said because people were playing with them and the sound, they didn't realize their walls were so thin. And this is a 5-star hotel. So everything has to be in balance. Nowadays, there are ways of using certain kind of limiters. If you're using a hospitality television or a sound bar for a hospitality TV, there's limiters in there that you can set to make sure that it sounds good, but it's not too loud.
Right. So, I mean, since you start the business, the technology has changed tremendously. So, explain to us the changes of technology, how it affects what you do.
In some ways, it's made our job easier, and in some ways a bit more challenging. It used to be that to do a sound system, let's say for a ballroom or a meeting room or a nightclub, you would have 1 or 2 equipment racks with all these discrete components in it. It would be 7 feet tall and 2 feet wide, 3 feet deep, and every piece had a different job to do. And then, as digital processing came into play, now we've got one box. It used to be this big, now it's this big. They have these big chips inside that would be processing that audio, so you can just put little pieces of software into that chip, and what used to be 2 full racks now can be all done in a rack this big. Now you still need amplifiers. They haven't been able to create instant energy, digital energy. So you still need amplifiers, which are sizable. But all the processing has shrunk down, and what used to be a lot of different wiring and connections that were soldered and plugged in are now lines drawn on a PC screen, and our drawings have become simpler. But the programming, just like any computer, it's the quality of the programming and the data, garbage in, garbage out. In Excel spreadsheets is also true in audio processing. So, and the user interface. How does the user operate these systems? There's touch screens and there's iPad controls and things like that, but how does it look? Is the escape key always in the same place? How many touches do you have to go through to simply run the DVD or to turn the lights on or off or turn the music up and down? That can be made very simple and intuitive, or it can be made very challenging depending on who's doing that.
So it's a constant education, constant learning, and to find what is the best to do for each customer. Okay, you hold that thought.
Okay.
And when we come back, we're going to talk about what is Jeff's future plan and how the whole industry of sound is going to change. Don't go away.
I'm Scott Divert, and I work for Carlson Residor Hotel Group, and you're watching.
You are watching.
Thank you for watching Koni TV.
Koni TV.
Koni TV.
Koni TV.
The first ever internet TV station designed specifically for the hospitality industry. KoniTV.tv.
Welcome back to Hospitality Insider with Jeff Loether, President of Electro-Media Design. Hi, Jeff. Thank you so much for those wonderful information.
Thank you.
And share with us, what is the future of this sound world that we are going to see?
Well, I think that what we're seeing happening is more and more customization, more and more small areas that are being used as huddle spaces, and specialty music being used, custom music tracks, day parting. So the sound experience is now starting to be designed just like the visual experience.
Right.
People are becoming more and more sensitive to it and wanting to be listen to hear more of what's congruent with the visual effects. So I think that's happening, and there's also more interactivity. So guests with their personal devices want to be able to participate with the environment that they're in, especially in the guest room.
Yes.
They're bringing their own music. It's called self-provision technology. They're bringing their own connectivity, and they want to be able to enjoy it just like they do at home.
Yeah, it's just like a personal touch. Yeah, see, I also understand that, you create some different type of music that is for awakening or for sleep or for bad excitement or something that you give you some different type of feelings, and so you can be ready for whatever you're doing.
Yes.
So can you touch base on that a little bit?
Well, yes. I think they said that music soothes the savage beast, and we have a bit of the savage beast in all of us. I think that sometimes gets agitated and needs to be soothed a bit. And I think we all have a song or an album or a genre or an artist that we can say, whenever I'm feeling a little bit funky, I know that I can put on this particular song, and within seconds it brightens me up. In fact, you can even almost just think of that for you and for myself. I can think, maybe it's Pick Up the Pieces by Poco.
Yes.
Or Boston, Don't Look Back.
Yes.
Or something like that. And you're just thinking about it, and you can feel that little surge of energy and peacefulness inside.
Right.
So.
Yeah, or vice versa. When you want to go to sleep, that
yes.
you have a different music that you do. Do you see that brands or hotels are grasping into this and buying those CDs so you can have a choice to listen to?
I think what they're doing is they're engaging musicologists and artists and producers to do their own label, sort of, their own custom. They're starting with the spas. They were doing their own kind of music to help relax.
Right.
And I'm seeing more and more of that happening. In fact, one of the things that I think is going to happen, I'll try a little prediction here. In the past, spa therapists were choreographing their treatment to their own music that they would put together from their own cuts, and they would do that on cassettes. I'm talking back in the 80s.
Yes.
Well, now you can work with a musicologist and have the music custom written and recorded to go with a therapeutic session and time it all the way through, so they know when they hear this kind of instrument being played, maybe they're working on the hip, and then they hear another, and then now they're working on the leg.
I see.
So I think
that's
that the
specific.
whole,
That's fantastic, isn't
and
it?
it also can be choreographed and arranged to match with the chakra centers and the energy levels and the frequencies of the different chakras.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I heard about that too, and it really makes a difference, doesn't it? And so, in your mind, what do you do differently than any other people who are your competition?
Oh, wow. That's sort of easy because I came into this through the hotel business. I was with Marriott for 10 years, and I learned deep lessons about what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. Einstein said everything should be as simple as possible, but not one bit simpler. And I have that poster next to my desk to remind me every day.
Very good.
We know how these venues operate. We frequently are in meetings and know more about how that ballroom or boardroom or meeting room. We attend meeting planners conferences and look at the designs that we do through the eyes of our customer.
That's
so
right.
we're hoteliers primarily that are in the hospitality technology side of things. Looking at it from that perspective is a completely different perspective than being product based or the latest trend based.
So your ultimate customers are the guests, so that's what you have to deal with, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. We've got to take care of the guests and make that experience excellent.
Excellent. So at Koni TV, we always have a program is giving back. So I know that you have some programs that you're giving back. So can you share with What do you do to give back?
Thank you for asking, because that's sort of a part of our practice that we don't really talk about much. But what it is that we focus on the community that is hearing and sight challenged. So we do pro bono work for schools for the blind and schools for the deaf.
Oh, yes.
And one of the flagship opportunities that we did was the Helen Keller National Center in Long Island, where we designed a complete auditorium for them. Now, when we went there, you can imagine when I got a phone call saying we need an audiovisual system for the Helen Keller Center.
Yes.
I thought, well, this is either going to be the easiest project or the hardest project I've ever taken on.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
So went and spent some time with them, found out what their budget was, said this is going to be pro bono from the start. And we were able to, by contacting contractors and manufacturers, raise over $350,000 worth of donated product, and then use the little bit of money that they had to pay for the installation of that product.
So how do that? I'm very curious about how would you install the sound system for the blind or deaf?
Well, this audience had every different combination. Some were hearing challenged, some were sight challenged, some were mute, and what we had to do was be able to accommodate sign language and simultaneous interpretation and closed captioning.
Yes.
So when somebody in the audience would want to ask a question, and they were all present at the same time, so we had to help communicate everybody, even Braille readers.
Right, I
you know,
understand.
and so some people couldn't see, but they could hear, and then everything that was being said was being communicated by a hard of hearing listening system. Cameras would go in and you'd have a sign language interpreter with their image up on the screen so that the people who could watch that and understand it. That's how it got very complicated, and it turned out to be a very challenging project and a very successful one also.
Wonderful.
So that's just
Thank
an
you
example.
so much, Jeff. Now I want you to share just one word of wisdom to the audiences that what you would like to communicate.
When we think about the future, while technology is a very interesting subject and it gets us all flutter imagining possibilities, remember that we human beings are analog. We have analog eyes and analog ears, and we live in an analog box. So let's think inside the box for the humans and outside the box for the technology.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we enjoyed very much for our conversation. And thank you for watching Hospitality Insider on Koni TV. If you'd like to know more about Jeff, please go to konitv.tv.
This is Ken Salyer with Tricus, and I want to thank you for watching.
You're watching
Thanks for watching Koni TV.
Koni TV.
Koni TV.
Watch it every day for the latest hospitality news, hospitality trends, or whatever you desire to find out in the hospitality industry.
Come join us now at konitv.tv.